Right, so this is a video that I didn't think I was going to make this early in the year. I thought I was going to make it this year, but not in January. And that is the sad or relief-filled news. For most people, it's probably more relieving than sad, but for some people, will definitely be sad. For me, it's a bit of both, because I've been waiting for Avengers to die, because it's been limping along, and it's been quite sad to watch. You just want to put that poor dog down. But I just was hoping that it was going to be later on the year. I thought we were going to get at least a character. We were going to get something. I thought they were going to want to go out with a bang. They went out with a whimper. Went out with a wet fart. It's not good, is it? Either way you look at it, it's not good news. The game that kind of solidified me as wanting to be a streamer and wanting to be a content creator full time is going away. Is not going to be a thing anymore. The server's being shut down. It's just gone. And yeah. Now obviously this isn't concrete news. There is none of the CD Crystal Dynamics hasn't come out. Brian's been let go for obvious reasons, but no one at Crystal Dynamics has come out and said, yeah, the game's gone. But it has come from a valid source that has never been wrong before. Miller with the 8 M's, and he's been there with everything that he's said, with every leak that he's said so far, everything that he's said about the game. That his big report at the start of the year, maybe that was a bit presumptuous, but that was if everything goes well this year. And supposedly back from the Christmas break, CD has decided, you know what, fuck it. Let's go to comfortable Tomb Raider. We're fine with that. We don't need the drama. We don't need, the community that's up in arms every time we give them a new piece of content. You know what? That happens with every game. The Avengers drama happens with every game. Every video game has that. So, not wanting to put up with that, Brian having a hissy fit every time someone says something's lazy, that A, adds fuel to the fire, B, don't call your player base retards, because, that creates bad blood and animosity, and, it's not something that we want to hear, and it's not something that looks good towards you, or the people that work for you, or work with you, and they don't want to work in that environment. You don't want to be that guy, because people just hate you for it, and you lose your job, so, and it makes you even less hireable for the next thing. How the fuck he got a job on Avengers in the first place, I don't know. He's made the game infinitely worse since he joined. I have no doubt that it was his decision to take away operations and him to lighten the load and go all in on skins and be like money, money, money. I have no doubt that that was his decision. But, for me, if Avengers is going to be shut down in the coming weeks, I think it's beyond scummy that skins were released in January at all. I think it was beyond scummy that Winter Soldier was released, even, and that they started, now that the end is nigh, now is when they've started doing these, maskless, or, these variant skins for skins that already exist, and they've decided to charge even more, It's like they're trying to bleed the wallets of their player base now that there's no game going forward. And that seems so scummy to me, unbelievably so, because you're paying money for these things and you're not going to be able to use it. You're not going to be able to play with any of these things that you've spent real life money on. So it's essentially like chucking money into a bin, or chucking money into the pockets of, a dying game, or a game that's pretty much already, signed its DNR. So, at the end of the day, Avengers is not it. Avengers has never been it. Even when the game came out, even when it started, it was bug riddled. Some of the bugs that were at the start still in the game. We had an IP address leak that happened with one of the year one updates. We had an IP address leak. We've had a massively anti-trans ableist head developer, and it's just been problem after problem and issue after issue, and it never stopped with Avengers. Every time there was something new, it was one step forward, 500 steps back, and they never really got a rein on what they were trying to do, and that's why it never took off in the first place, I don't think. Not as big as it should have been. This was an Avengers game the year or a couple of years after the Avengers was the biggest IP in cinema, the biggest IP in Hollywood. An Avengers game should have been a home run, but it wasn't, because there was no care put into it. There was nothing really there. The operations felt lackluster, and then the operations were taken away for an even more lackluster iconic mission design. Skins were overpriced. They tried to monetize consumables and then went back on that. There's been no updates. They just had a year of negligible updates. Clone characters being put in, Echo characters being put in. I'm not surprised that this game is dead now in the water. Pretty much they took it out the back and shot it in the head, and that, I think, was the best idea, because there's no saving Avengers. There's no big Destiny Taken King style update that you can do, because the damage has already been done. The bad faith is already there. Even if you did save the game and do a No Man's Sky or Destiny Taken King style thing, even if you did do a Destiny 2 or an Avengers 2, I think there's enough bad blood and animosity towards CD, the way that it's treated the player base, and the way that it's kind of not really prioritized the right things in Avengers, that I think if there is an Avengers 2, that it won't be a success like Destiny 2 was, or still is. There was just not enough groundwork, to be honest. Being totally and fairly honest, there was not enough groundwork at launch. There weren't enough characters at launch. I was expecting a few new unlockables throughout the story, a few new unlockable characters throughout the story. We should have ended the story with at least 8 characters, not 6. I thought there were going to be a few surprises and people that weren't shown off, even villains. Only having 3 in the main story. The whole idea with the Marvel IP is how much potential you have. The game could have been huge, even just at launch. You look at something like Midnight Suns. You even look at something like Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights had a big, Cavalcade, and then they went on and did Starro. Maybe they didn't do it in the right way, but they did it, and that's just insular to Batman, and so it could have been huge. It could have been huge, and I hope that anyone who decides to do something like this later on, I feel like a Marvel Games as a Service thing can't be. As I was saying, I don't think a superhero Games as a Service thing can be AAA, because the Games as a Service model is very monetization heavy, and very it's all about all of the things that I hate, like stores, battle passes. And it's weird that I latched onto Avengers and gave it as much of a shot as I did, because everything that it did, outside of the bugs, everything that it did was so bad. Everything that it did was the exact opposite of what I play games for, and the whole chasing gear pieces and having to replay missions over and over again and having to log into the same game every day. I thought it'd be a great stream game because of that. It wasn't. It was a AAA game that modeled itself to be like a mobile game, and unfortunately that's just not the way games should work. Destiny kind of has that thing of being A, gear has a cosmetic buff. Gear has a cosmetic thing. B, gear actually changes gameplay. You get an exotic weapon in Destiny and it feels different. I don't really like Destiny much anymore. I used to play it a lot. I'm not really into it anymore. I just shooters for me just don't do it. But with Avengers there was no real chase. Yeah, you were chasing to get the best stats, but it was just stats. It was always just stats. There was nothing special, really. There was no exotic gear piece that really changed the way the game was played. There were no characters that were released that changed the way the game was played. And the characters were the biggest selling point of the game. And then year 2 rolls around, you gave up. I gave up with characters. Jane Foster, carbon copy of Thor. Winter Soldier, he's a carbon copy of Captain America. And Black Widow, with some extra spice thrown in. But at the end of the day, Winter Soldier had way too many stolen, reused assets to be able to justify it. I tried to. I did. I really did. But I can't sit here and say that was a good decision. At the end of the day, Avengers was never going to thrive. It was never going to shine. It should have. In the world that we live in, when Marvel is the biggest moneymaker in the world, when the Avengers movies are the biggest thing in cinema, a game based on that should have won every accolade, been Game of the Year. It should have had the care and the attention that it really deserved, and it didn't. Unfortunately, it didn't. And Avengers will always go down in history as that game, that little boy who couldn't, that game that couldn't. And it's the most depressing story in gaming, to be honest. A game that had 2 years of nothing, and I will say this. You did better than Babylon's Fall. You know, for what it's worth, you did better than Babylon's Fall. You Crystal Dynamics, you beat Platinum Games, and that's probably worth a lot. Because Platinum Games are big. They make big games. They know how to do games. You know, games as a service stuff, stay away from. I will carry this mantra on. Live service games have a place. Some people like that. Some people like the grind. Some people like logging in every day and doing stuff. It's probably a good thing. It's a good thing for streamers, I think, in this streaming landscape. Games as a service style things with like constant updates and constant content are good for streamers because it gives them something to do every day. It gives them something to stream every day. And it ensures that they've got work, to be honest. But I just don't think building a whole business model towards content creators and then having complete disregard for content creators and also making a live service game and, you know, billing it as that and then not providing the live service aspect of it is a big issue. And I'm glad that Avengers is over. I'm glad that it's done. I'm glad I can move on from that phase of my life, because it was a phase of my life. It was an era. It was a whole era of like Avengers videos, and I'm glad that it's done. I'm glad that I can remove it from my PlayStation for good. And yeah. It's just sad that it died before I got a PS5. That's the biggest thing. And it died before Captain Marvel. It was teasing Captain Marvel for forever, and it died before Captain Marvel was able to be a thing. Died before Daredevil. It died before, you know, all five. It died before Doctor Strange. Oh my god, it died before before Wanda. Died before Scarlet Witch. It died before Ant-Man. It didn't even do Ant-Man. Missed opportunities, man. Missed opportunities. What can I say? RIP in the chat for Marvel's Avengers. The little game that couldn't. I'll see you guys in the next video, hopefully. It'll probably be another part of the Cobra Kai playthrough, to be honest. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.